Everyone, today is November 25th, 2025. It is 6:39 p.m. My name is Jenny Rivera, and I chair the Holyoke City Council Public Safety Committee. Before we begin our agenda, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the members of our committee. We have Councilor Patty Devine in chambers. We also have Councilor Israel Rivera online. Additionally, we have Councilor Carmen Ocasio in chambers. We also have in chambers Joni, which is the Director of Conservation. We also have Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith in chambers. We have Mike Gallagher from DPW. We also have Victoria, our engineer. We also have the residents of 85 Jarvis Heights. Online, we have State Rep Pat Duffy. We have our city solicitor, Mike Bissonette. And we also have David Murphy, and I apologize because I'm not sure who you're representing. I think I covered everyone here, right?
Do you know who David Murphy? Okay, is your mic on?
David Murphy is our consultant for the hazard mitigation plan. So he's here in case we need additional information or answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Yoni. Today's meeting is being held in chambers on Zoom, is being broadcasted live on public access channel. We are being recorded by Zoom, and we are streamed and in person. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss and address various matters related to public safety within our community, And because we have Councilor Israel Rivera online, I do have to read this. Motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. And with that being said,
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take up item number 1.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we'll start with Yoni. Okay, so you said item 1, right?
Item number
Okay.
1, yes.
Item 1 was it was from October 21st, 2025, from Yoni Glower. Okay, Director of Conservation and Sustainability, Holyoke Mitigation Plan Update, Letter to Council, Local Mitigation Plan Review Tool, Hazard Mitigation and Climate Adaptation Plan and Resolution. So, and Yoni, I'll have you take the floor.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So this item is in regard to our hazard mitigation plan update. We've been working on it for the past 2 years, year and a half. We got the grant funding in early 2024. And the goal of this is to update our existing hazard mitigation plan, which is kept on file with FEMA, and it's a requirement for us to continue to be eligible for certain grant sources. The goal of the plan, I'll just read the quote from the intro. It's concerned with any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate the long-term risk to human life and properties from hazards. So we followed the guidelines set out through the FEMA process. We've completed the plan. We sent it to them for review. There's been a few iterations of the comments and amendments. And now they finally approved the plan. The only steps that are remaining are adoption by our city council and I believe our local planning agency. So that's why we brought it forward to the city council. I'm happy to go through and just summarize the different sections, and I can answer any questions about the plan and the process. And as I mentioned earlier, David Murphy, our hired consultant at Resilient Land and Water, who we hired to put the plan together with us, is present. So if there's very technical questions about the process or anything contained in the plan that I might not be able to answer, he can definitely do so. So does that sound okay if I just go through and summarize the plan and the different chapters?
Sure.
I'll try to go relatively quickly. All right, what was I going to talk about? So, as I mentioned, primary goal of having a hazard mitigation plan on file is it makes us eligible to certain funding sources through FEMA, particularly the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program currently. We put together a planning committee. We had reps from different departments, all weighing in on the different hazards facing Holyoke and what kind of mitigation strategies we wanted to prioritize. So we had DPW, Carl Rossi, who was then DPW director, and Mira Gates were involved in our committee. And then when Matt Sokop came on as engineer more recently, he was able to review a draft and provide input. But we also had folks from Board of Health, the Planning and Economic Development Department, Holyoke Waterworks, HG&E, and the Fire Department, and my department, Conservation and Sustainability. And yeah, we had public presentations and a survey. We posted a draft of it on the city website for review. And like I mentioned, with the grant funding provided by FEMA to update the plan, we hired Resilient Land and Water, and they brought on some subcontractors to do the work. So yeah, I'll quickly go through. There's 7 chapters in the plan. There's an introduction. It introduces the plan and the different sections that are contained. So most of what I just described is covered in the introduction. Chapter 2 is our planning area profile. So this is like the summary of existing conditions in Holyoke. It goes into the history of the city, our population, form of government, infrastructure, demographics, natural resources, and a general overview of what are our critical facilities in the community. So we think about things like electric generation, the grid, energy transmission, water and sewer service, which facilities have backup power in the case of an emergency. We have many dams and historic resources, our transportation infrastructure, etc. So that section it's like a overview of the existing conditions in Holyoke that sort of set the stage for the study. Chapter 3 talks about our planning process. It summarizes all the meetings that we had in our committee, but also all the outreach activities we did. We had 3 public meetings at the Holyoke Public Library. It sort of summarizes the timeline. Most of the work was done between August and December of 2024. But like I mentioned, we got comments back on the initial draft that we had to revise, and so forth. Chapter 4, that's the risk assessment section. So that's where we looked at all the natural hazards that might affect Holyoke, and FEMA gives us a way to sort of rank how worried we are about them in Holyoke, how much of a priority there are. So this section has a lot of tables. We've got hazard profiles for flooding, areas of the city that are most prone to flooding, assessment of all the dams in the city. It turns out we have quite a few, not just the big Holyoke Dam that generates electricity. We thought about landslides and our risk for that. Chronicles of drought that occurred in Holyoke from the past decade and what might occur in the future, the impacts to infrastructure and public health, wildfires. What's interesting about this update, it's the first time that we talk about invasive species as a hazard. So Councilor McGrath-Smith was a big fan of that. Things like water chestnut, emerald ash borer, and spotted lanternfly are covered, and how they affect our safety and well-being. Tropical storms, severe winter storms, ice storms. And like I mentioned, Not all of these affect Holyoke equally. There's a ranking system for what we're most concerned about. And the highest ranking hazards in Holyoke are extreme temperatures, flooding, hurricanes and tropical storms, and other forms of severe weather. We could have landslides. It seems less likely. All right, I'll finish quickly soon. Chapter 5 is our capability assessment. And that looks at what are our current capabilities to mitigate risk, to prevent hazards from causing harm to infrastructure or our community. And there's different sections of this. What are our planning and regulatory systems in place? Our zoning ordinance, building codes, stormwater, our administrative and technical abilities, like staff we have who are designated as first responders and are on standby to respond to hazards, our financial status, and our capability for education and outreach. And that's really focused on the different ways that we reach the public when there's an emergency and how we can direct them to safe places or resources. Chapter 6 is really where we get into what we want to work on, what we want to use FEMA grant funding for. That's the mitigation strategies chapter. It's our blueprint for reducing losses, our hazard mitigation goals. So there's a review of the goals that were laid out in our previous version of the hazard mitigation plan that was approved in 2017. Look at how we've done on those, but we've also created new and updated priorities. So I think what's probably the most important part of the whole plan is on page 137 of the document, which is 148 of the PDF. And that's our table of our 41 action items, our mitigation action table. So these are priority projects that we want to pursue as a city to mitigate future hazards in a variety of forms. So there's 41 of them. You can see they're all different types, and they all have different responsible entity or entities. Some of these are HG&E projects, public works, related to flood control or our wastewater treatment facility. There's stuff here about utility hardening and moving certain critical lines underground for HG&E. So when we're applying for grant funding through FEMA or even through other sources, we can point to this chart and identify, like, this is a priority that we identified through our comprehensive hazard mitigation planning process. Oh, there's some sewer separation projects in here too. So that's where everything in the plan comes together, and that's a bulk of our meetings of our working group was focused on figuring out what those priorities were. Chapter 7 is just about plan implementation and maintenance. So that's our system for evaluating. This is supposed to be updated periodically, ideally every 5 years. We're a little over in this case. It took a while to get the grant funding in place and to do the process. But that's sort of how we can update the plan over time. And I think this is a good time to also mention, like, at this point, FEMA has approved this version of the plan. We can make some corrections, but as far as changing anything substantive, if that's the will of the council, it's something that we can do next year. There's a process for updating and amending the plan over time. So that's what I have for a general overview, but I'm happy to, I have it pulled up on my computer. I can go to any section, and again, David Murphy's here. He does lots of these for various communities, so there might be things in here I'm not as adept in, but that's the basic story of our hazard mitigation plan.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Murphy, would you like to chime in before I let our counselors chime in as well?
No, thanks everyone. I really am here to answer questions. Yoni did a wonderful job presenting a summary of the plan, and hopefully the resolution has appeared in some form to you already, and if you have questions about the wording of the resolution, I can help out with that, or questions about the grant programs that come after this likewise can help with that as well.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Patty Devine?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to commend you, Yoni, for doing this, and if Meg worked with you as well. This is unbelievable, that all that you've had to do, and I really compliment you on that. And this was for a grant of only $26,800.
Yeah, that's right.
Should be tripled
Yeah.
for all the work you had to do, but I think you did a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Meg McGrath-Smith?
Thank you. And through the chair to the Director of Conservation. My question is, what are you most excited about in this? And did you feel like there was something you really wanted to include but felt like you couldn't yet?
Yeah, I'm excited that we have an updated chart. I think our action items are a lot more robust and achievable this time around. We were going through some of the actions from the previous plan. We even had small working groups with Holyoke Waterworks and HG&E,
Right.
and we were even trying to understand some of the old priorities and weren't sure they were still relevant. So I think a lot of these, like, they're already things that were on the docket for the city, but now they're framed in this hazard mitigation priority. And I know it's not the major part of the plan, but I was also excited about the invasive species, at least getting some coverage in the documents. I think where my interest tends to lie in the city, it's the areas of intersection between, like, the human-built environment and natural resources. So thinking about invasive species like emerald ash borer, which is attacking our native ash trees, many of which are a common urban tree in Holyoke, especially on Main Street. I appreciated having that added to the plan and acknowledged, at least, even if it's not on par with some of the other hazards that we determined as the top priority.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions?
Make a motion that we approve the, we've already approved the grant, correct? So now we need to approve what you've just gone through.
Yeah, well, there's a resolution that was included with the item, so it would be,
Approve the resolution?
yeah.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote. Counselor Patty Devine?
Yes.
Counselor Israel Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera? Yes. With that being said, that has passed 3-0 vote. Thank you, Yoni. Now, are you going to be staying for the other items on the agenda?
There was one about Bassett Road.
Yes.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I can stick around for it.
Okay, thank you.
That was requested.
Make a motion that we take up item number 2. Make a motion that we take up item number 2.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 2 was filed by Counselor Meg McGrath-Smith and Counselor Patty Devine. Order that Old Bassett Road be paved by the city of Holyoke. And we do have Counselor Meg McGrath-Smith in chambers. We also have Counselor Devine. So I will entertain a motion to have Counselor Meg McGrath-Smith and speak on this item.
And I think Victoria.
And
speaks on it, too.
Okay.
Thank you. And I don't know if it might be possible to invite, if we want to invite Michael Gallagher or Victoria in, or if you want them to speak at the mic.
They could come in.
You can sit at any of the desks. Yeah. A future counselor. So this was an order that I put in concerning Old Bassett Road, along with Counselor Devine. And this is a road that was a county road that was discontinued some time ago. And, you know, like many of these county roads, when it was discontinued, the city did not then accept it as a public way. And there is some question around, was that intentional or was it a lack of due diligence? And now that we have this road, it has two houses at the end, and it's in very poor shape to the point that the fire commissioner has written a letter saying that it would be very difficult to be able to get a full pumper truck up there. And there's been concerns about the city's requirement to make sure that any roads in the city are able to be passable by medical and emergency personnel. So that could be a police officer, an ambulance, a fire truck, in order to respond when things go wrong. And we have heard from the, one of the property owners that there was an issue with an ambulance having a really hard time getting up the road when there was a medical issue in their home. And as a result, it's really important for us to talk about, is this a road that we can accept, that we should accept at this point? Is this a road that we should pave without accepting? Sort of a question of what is the path forward? And what are the pros and cons of that?
And I think, Victoria, you gave us something that it had to be 50 feet, the road.
I did put together some, like a summary of sort of previous discussions and subsequent actions taken to help guide the conversation. I'll just ask you to bear with me while I get through it, and this can be sort of finalized. I just didn't have time for the city solicitor's office to review the memo, although we did have conversations about it. So, Old Bassett Road was a county-owned road. At one point, it extended all the way from Jarvis Avenue to Southampton, in the vicinity of Pomeroy Street and Burt Street intersection. And the right-of-way width at that time was 35 feet. In 1858, the road was discontinued as a public highway at the request of the abutting property owners by the county commissioners, and that's the record that's been shared with you. Upon the discontinuance of the roadway as a public way, abutting property owners then retain the right to access their properties using it, and physical ownership of that land within the former right-of-way sort of split down the middle of the right-of-way. So whether their deed reflected it or not, they sort of own by default to the center of that right-of-way. We did talk about conservation restrictions last time, so they should let Yoni off the hook now after this one. But, so there's two. In 1999, there was conservation restriction placed on a number of parcels that abutted the road, but all of those parcels are west of Southampton Road. Not to be confused with that the street goes all the way to Southampton, but like west of Southampton Road. In 2005, there was a conservation restriction placed on a portion of the road, again, west of Southampton Road, and I think the area right now that's being discussed is sort of closer to the old Jarvis area. So the current status, it was typically, as Meg said, and this isn't in the memo, but like if it was a county road, there could be some confusion as to whether or not it became a city road after, but this was a county road that was intentionally discontinued by the county, so it wouldn't have followed in that same criteria. So the current status of Old Bassett Road between Jarvis and Southampton is that it is not a public highway owned by the city, and the abutting property owners own to the center of that former right-of-way. So there's two sort of requests that have been presented. So there's a petition to accept the road as a public way. So I did ask for cost estimates from a surveyor to do a potential layout of an acceptance of a portion of the road. It's approximately 900 linear feet from Jarvis Ave, because that's where the residential properties are. I do have a plan that I sent to Jeffrey like very close before now that kind of shows you like what that area could potentially be. It was called, let's see, does it have yellow highlighting? Yeah. So, waiting to get back the cost of that because doing a layout plan for the road is part of the public acceptance process, if that were to be something that you wanted to pursue. So, but there are a couple sort of caveats with that. So the new right-of-way width would need to be 50 feet versus the 35 feet that it used to be. So it's a standard in the Holyoke Code of Ordinances, section 78-85, as well as in the city's subdivision regulations.
Miss Victoria, can you just say that one more time? Just the
So this
the numbers that have to change.
The minimum right-of-way width would be 50 feet, which is standard. I mean, it's not just here, but it is in two different places. So it's in the Code of Ordinances 78-85, and again, this kind of summary can be provided to you too, but it's also in the city subdivision regulations. But the previous one was 35. So while they still, you know, the abutting property owners own to the center of that, it's kind of like when you go even beyond that, there is a part from compensating them from the rights kind of thing. It's one thing to say, well, yes, but everybody sort of had the access, so it's not really like usable space. But that extra 7.5 feet on both sides is usable, developable space that will be sort of valued differently. So that's one thing. We can't just like use the old plan and present it and bring it forward. In the public acceptance piece of things, abutting property owners would either need to donate the land for the new right-of-way, or property appraisals would need to be done to assess like the damage and or compensation value that they would get in conjunction with a potential right-of-way taking. And so it would be recommended, because I think the petition was signed by 3 owners, that maybe the abutting property, like all of them, be sort of inventoried, as that would sort of add into the cost. So there would be survey number 1, but prior to council action on the potential acceptance, there's supposed to be an agreement that's signed by all abutting property owners indicating that either 1, they're going to claim no damages or release damages, so like AKA donate. 2, that they agree to whatever has been assessed as the specific damages, which is usually based on the appraisal. So I guess luckily we just had Center City, so we've seen some of that stuff recently. Or 3, they decline to release it, in which case like that means it would go into sort of that eminent domain 3 years negotiating thing. That would just affect, number 1, there's title examinations that would go with that, assessing of the value to take the land, as well as the actual appraisal piece of things. Further, the city subdivision standards, as you could use to relate, has a minimum road width, or at least the version I could find that I could not find online, was that the minimum road width was 22 feet. I will say in other communities it's 28 feet, so 28 feet. And also, normally when you have a dead end, there'd be a cul-de-sac at the end for vehicles to turn around. In a subdivision situation, we would be asking a developer to fully build a road to our city standards before we entertained accepting the road as a public way. So in this particular case, I think thought should also be given to whether or not we're asking for the road to be brought up to city standards before we accept it, or if that's something that is desired to be done upon accepting it. And in that same light, what I've shown on sort of the map, and I think what goes back to the beginning part of the residential properties, is about 900 feet. But there was something last I knew about planning board needing to approve dead-end streets that are greater than 500 feet in length. That potentially, by accepting this as a public road, sort of there could be some implication that it does need to be built up to standards, and there could be additional fire protection that's needed. So maybe right now, when the houses are a certain distance from a public street, maybe they're required to have sprinkler systems or something. But now, if it were to be a public road, would that mean water needs to be extended with fire hydrants? Or again, the width of the road being not 22 feet. I don't know. I think it's 12 to 15. But again, for emergency vehicles being able to turn around, as well as if you were to upgrade that road to be even wider, you would have to deal with, stormwater management, and where are you going to manage the stormwater from that repaved road. So those are sort of initial thoughts on the public acceptance that I'm throwing out there. I'm going to move to repaving the road, and I'm almost done. So the city's current funding for pavement rehab is primarily Chapter 90 funding, which is through the state, and or other state or federal funding that's usually street specific. And that was why I closed the main doors, because I knew that might happen. Please come back here. Or we could close those doors maybe. So it's usually Chapter 90 or one of the other programs, but that's street specific, and they're really restricted to city-owned roadways. If the committee or council wish to pursue paving the road in its current status, not as a public way, it could be achieved by getting permission for temporary rights, ideally for free, to pave the road by all of the abutting property owners. And then you would also need a municipal funding source to fund the paving activities. So you couldn't use Chapter 90, and you can't use the fund, the grant funding of, it's not going to be on the TIP project thing. But if there was municipal funding that was allocated, if you were to get temporary rights agreements from all of the people that abutted it, you could pave the road. If you wanted to pursue the public acceptance, which would require all of that, plus I'm sure I missed some stuff, then yes, eventually Chapter 90 would be an eligible funding source for it to be repaved. DOT would have to approve that we've done all the steps, based on the Richard Eager and Lynn Ann. That's going to take 3 to 6 months from the time I submitted the documents that said it was accepted to them actually putting it, at least me getting an email back that said they acknowledged that it was enough paperwork. But you can still click on things in their GIS system that don't show, that does not end up showing that it's a public way, even though I have confirmation. So that'll take about 3 to 6 months. And then it could be added into the master list of all of the streets that we've talked about in pavement management to be considered in conjunction with the rest of the streets in the city. So those are sort of I think the conservation easement part added to sort of the confusion. And I think by just sort of ask if the intent is really to repave the road, I could tell you, whether it's in the memo or not, repaving the road with a municipal funding source is far less expensive and time consuming than accepting it as a public way. And there's probably more than pros and cons that are even alluded to in, say, what I'm sort of proposing, because I'm trying to present it to you with no judgment, just sort of the facts of what you want to choose, but really knowing that maybe the goal is to get it paved. And so trying to give you sort of what that avenue is and being honest that it's easier to maybe pave it as a private road. And now I'll take care of that. Hold on a second.
Through the chair to Mr. Gallagher, what's your sense of the pros and cons of paving it for as a municipal funding source and keeping it as a private way versus accepting it as a public road permanently? I mean, I know because I've seen the original estimates. Again, I'm not saying that this is exactly accurate, because I know this was a rough estimate early on, but to give a price point to the public in terms of the difference between these two options early on, and again, maybe it needs more than a 2-inch overlay. Right, it probably does. But the 2-inch overlay cost for that length of road was $18,500. If we are going through the process of widening the road and doing other advancement, improvement to it, we're talking $160,000. It is a big difference. So I just love to hear your pros and cons, Mr. Gallagher.
Well, for starters, I suspect that to go everything that we'd have to go through to make it a accepted public road, I really doubt that 160,000 would accomplish that. I have the feeling it would be a lot more. you're talking about a lot of land prep work if the road, if the road were going to be 28 feet, I believe, was stated what the width of the road would have to be for a publicly accepted road. That would mean a lot of land clearing, especially going up the left side of it. There's a lot of trees up there that would have to be taken down on both sides to accomplish that, and a lot of prep work just to grade the road to the modern standard. And then just versus paving the road, it would be much more cost-effective measure. I don't think paving the road is going to solve the problem long-term, though.
Yeah.
Because just paving the road, a lot of repair work, a lot of patchwork's been done on that road over the years. We've tried a lot of different things, and paving the road would just be a nice new top of asphalt all the way down. It's all the underlying factors that cause all the potholes to open up on the road down towards the bottom near Jarvis Ave. There we always get it gets puddled up quite often. It washes away. I think there would need to be significant improvements made to the drainage up there. And we've also, one of the things I've noticed over the years, any roads where the road is in the shade all the time, they don't seem to hold up as well as roads that get dried off by the sunlight. So the more cost-effective measure would be to just pave what's existing. The more expensive measure would be to go through the whole process, and who knows what the final price tag would be for acceptance of the road. So the acceptance of the road and going through the whole procedure would give us a better finished product, but that's quite a ways off from being able to accomplish something like that.
Thank you. Is it possible to ask the homeowners who have come tonight if they would like to weigh in at this point? I would love to know from their perspective, is your main goal for it to be paved? Is the main goal for it to be accepted as a public way and for real improvements to be done to the road? Just would love your sense of it. I think you've heard from this city engineer that part of this process is very much in alignment with what the wishes are of the people who live on the road, right? The goal would be that this is a plan that both, houses are in agreement with and are in fact donating the value of the land that we would be taking to widen the road if we did that, rather than asking the city to pay for the value of the land to widen the road, because it would really increase the cost of the project to the point of potentially making it prohibitive. So we would need a real support from the folks on the road if we were going to go the route of a public way.
Hi, my name is Betsy, 85 Jarvis Ave, Holyoke. Thank you so much for having us again and for all this time and effort that you all have put into it. Really, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So to answer your question, Meg, I guess, we started this journey trying to figure out really who owned it and what could be done. Because it just comes down to, basic everyday life of how challenging it is sometimes, not all the time, but, sometimes of the year, it's bad. It's really bad. And the cost of the car fixing and everything, right? So, Victoria had so much information, and then in 23, when Chris Baker presented to the Finance Committee, he had so much information. So, there's a lot of information about how this process works. I deliver babies, right? So the engineering stuff is a little bit over my head. Yeah. But one of the things that comes to mind is that the state owns both sides of the road. And so we only own a small portion of that up at the very top. we only have a little like triangle, you know, so 75 feet, Matt says. So that's how much, you know, we would have to possibly give up or do whatever it took to get it up to the, what's the proper
I
terminology?
think they said it's 7.5 feet on either side of the road to,
Right, so
because
then,
it would only go up to the 2 houses and then stop.
no, not at all. So when you go up the hill, there's, the state owns both sides of that. And when you get to the top of the hill, we own 75 feet. That's touching that road. And then our neighbor has a right of way through our driveway. So her land, her property doesn't even touch the road at all. So it would only be our 75 feet that would be taken into consideration.
Okay.
Quite possibly the people down at the bottom of the road. I don't know, but that part of the road is significantly wider. So,
Is it
Ours.
important to you for us to take this road as a public way and do real improvements to it in terms of widening and maybe stormwater, or looking at if there needs to be a hydrant? Or is it,
I
would it
think
be an
would behoove
acceptable,
everybody
would
to
it
do
be an acceptable solution for us to just like do a skim coat over it of the 2-inch overlay? I think it would happen faster. It would make it better. I'm not sure it would make it better in the long run.
Right.
And I know that if we don't accept it as a public way, then you're likely to have this issue in another 20 years and then another 20 years, as you then have to come to council again to say, will you make an exception and
Yeah.
pave a private way? So there are real pros and cons. The private, you know, public way is more expensive, and it's a longer, more complicated process.
Right.
And it's okay if you don't know right now. I mean, I absolutely, if you wanted to think about it and talk to your neighbor and then get back to us, that could be great too.
Yeah. It's just been a very long and frustrating process. And again, I just thank you all so much for your time. It's just so nice to finally be heard on it. And you know, I agree with Mike that the best way to do it would be to do it right. And you know, the thought crossed my mind, and I have no idea. This is like land law, right? This is land law. This is not what my MO is. But I'm wondering if, you know, in the 1800s when they discontinued it, did they give it to the city? Like, would it just be easier to say, like, for the city to take it back and then it be eligible for Chapter 90? I don't know these things, like, right? Okay, yeah.
That's one of the questions I have.
So, yeah, I'm not sure.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, thank you. So,
Yep.
After, see if Pat Duffy has it.
yep, I want her to speak. I see we have Councilor Israel Rivera with his hands up.
Thank you. Thank you guys for bringing this forward. And obviously, thank you, Victoria, for the very detailed explanation, as well as Mr. Gallagher. And I think for me, as much as we would like to do it the right way, if we were to move it forward in doing it the right way, I have to say, even if we vote on it and we approve it, there's no guarantee it's going to happen within the next certain amount of years because of the significant amount it's going to cost versus the 18,000 of just doing it real quick. If I'm correct, right? That was the number, Meg?
Yeah, so that's only 2 inches. Sorry, through the chair to Mr. Rivera. It's only for a 2-inch overlay. It likely would need some significant work, even prep work, because there are potholes that are so much deeper than 2 inches. So it would likely be higher than that, but that's the minimum.
But so it's cheaper than taking the approach of having to build it out to code, pretty much, to a city ordinance and plus state code or whatever it is, of having the actual legitimate width of the street and everything that we need to have. Is that correct? Through the chair to Meg?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. But again,
Right,
too,
so-
like it would be a Band-Aid and then it would have to be done
That is correct.
potentially later and then later and then later.
I'm sorry for the kids in the background. I hear kids there. I got kids here. It's everywhere. So my point is, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, in taking the approach of doing the accepting as a road, I think that we can still do that later on. I think that it doesn't have to happen today. It doesn't have to happen within this time frame. And I think that if we were to try to take that approach, it would probably take longer than it would be if we just approved just paving the road for now and still having people still work on trying to get that approved in the long term whenever there is money that comes through, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying, Meg?
Are you saying that it would be, that we would want to ask for it to be paved in the short term using municipal funding and still start the process of going forward with a?
I mean, that would be the fight, right? The fight would be, and again, through the chair to Councilor McGrath-Smith, the fight would be, right now the concern is getting it paved. In the long term, you would like it to be something that it would be cost effective, right? But right now, the concern is getting it paved, which it is a thin layer and it is not what we would like it to be, right? But ultimately, it will solve the problem for the next, you said 20 years, I'm giving, that's a lot. No. But I would say 5 to 10 years, right? Let's just be.
I think so. A 2-inch overlay is closer to like 3 years.
So 3 years. Right?
It wouldn't. So the problem is that it's 1850, or maybe ends up being 24. You know, but
I guess what I'm trying to point out, and again through the chair, is that if we approve the lower number, that'll happen now or within a shorter time frame than if we approved going through accepting the whole thing. It would take 3 to 4 years if we actually approved it now and went for the recommendation for getting all that done. Because unless we have that much money to just pave roads, which I don't believe we have at the moment, it's just gonna sit on the back burner, if you get what I'm saying. And
so through the chair to Councilor Rivera, the total cost, if we did accept it as a public way, could be upwards of $500,000. It would take 3 to 4 years.
Right, and it would take 3 to 4 years to pave it. To even get it approved, it wouldn't even get paved yet.
I think I would be very satisfied if we were able to start that first step. I think it would be okay to name for it to be like short term, paved now with a 2-inch overlay. But I still think that we should approve the work that it would take to survey the road and do the tax title work. Because we can't even consider taking the road without that work done.
I'm not against. So I wouldn't be
and
against
it would start the process.
Yeah, no, and again through the chair, I wouldn't be against that. That's kind of what I'm trying. Hopefully, I'm saying is, to me, the most pertinent thing is to get the road paved, because that we know for a fact that that's the lower hanging fruit, I guess, for lack of better terms. And then the larger fight is to try to get the larger long term fix. But if it means that right now this is what was happening, and then we go in a different direction instead of trying to do it all at once, we're just pushing it forward and saying, hey, listen, this is the goal and this is what we're trying to do. Then I think that approach at least gets the residents the road paved for the next however long it is. And then through that process, hopefully people are still working on getting it approved. I hope that makes sense is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay, so I hear all sides of this, but I would like to see if we could have State Rep Pat Duffy chime in on this quickly.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
First, I want to apologize for not being there in person, but having a bum leg and using a cane, so the rain is kind of like my kryptonite. So I'm taking advantage of our ability to do this remotely. It's good to see you all. I really appreciate getting the background here. As you have already heard, the complicated part of this process is on the city side. We can certainly talk. I have had initial conversations with the folks in the District 2 MassDOT office. And, you know, we can ask for help with, you know, consultants and advice on moving forward. But it will really be, this research has probably already been done on your part, but there's a whole RISA road inventory submission application, and MassDOT needs to see like that this work has been done, that the city council, the planning board and the city council have taken all of this important information into consideration. It is voted on by the council and, you know, signed by the mayor, validated by the city clerk, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I think that I would just have to agree with what I think I'm hearing. In order to get something done more expeditiously, there is the paving that you all have been talking about. And while you're doing that, go down the road of the very serious consideration of getting this submitted as a public road, and then it, you know, having it be eligible for Chapter 90 funding.
Thank you. I just, and thank you for coming and sharing your insight from the state perspective. And
thank you for sharing your stories. Really important, really important.
Thanks. So a couple of things came to mind. One was, if you're going to move ahead with the process of getting it qualified for Chapter 90, I think that it's difficult. You'd have to get the state involved more somehow, because they own the property. That's all adjacent. It's surrounded by state conservation land. And so the state has to be involved with it at that level. The other thing is, I was wondering if the city solicitor wanted to weigh in, because this is really a complicated issue with, you know, abandoned roads. And, you know, I don't know if the city solicitor had anything to say.
I'd make a motion that Attorney Bissonnette chime in here if he's got something to
Second.
add.
Attorney Bissonnette.
Well, good evening. Thanks for asking for my comments. Representative Duffy, always a pleasure to see you, ma'am.
Sir?
On this question, it really is quite confusing. I don't believe I've ever seen a diagram quite like this, where it borders 4 separate communities, 2 separate counties, and has deeds going back to, well, far before I was born, let me put it that way. It's unique. And what makes it even harder is that the abandoned piece of road runs much farther than the 900 feet. It probably has some historical background as to why it was a trail or a road for commercial reasons. But what we're left with is this interlocking devices of 2 sets of not overlapping, but nearby and congruent to these properties, conservation restrictions. Overlay that with the ownership issue, which for those of us that look at Holyoke downtown law often, know that this is almost just like the alleyways, right? In an alleyway, both property owners own to the middle. Well, guess where that came from? From these abandoned roads. So this becomes not, I hate to say it, not the city's problem, because the ownership really resides in the owners on each side of the middle. And so there are a lot of requirements to fulfill before DOT will even consider this stretch of land becoming an accepted roadway. So as we look at it, what's the reality? Is there ever going to be $500,000 available to do this particular project? Well, looking at the city coffers, state coffers, and whatever the hell's happening at the federal level, we don't quite know yet. But we know there's going to be some disruption in funding because of the mechanisms that are put in place over years to flow money through the states to the cities is going to be disrupted. It has begun, but we won't feel the full shut-off effects of that probably until next September, October. So we're left with these questions of future revenues that are really not probably amenable to spending $500,000 of local tax money to aid 3 properties. And a betterment tax wouldn't work, well, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be out of the question, but having 3 or 4 property owners splitting up $500,000 is a big ask. So if you can manage to bring this in for under $20,000, it's legal, financially feasible, certainly will make plowing easier this winter. If I guess we should ask Mike, because he's probably the man who knows more. Are the tar plants still open? Can this thing get paved with a 2-incher over, the next couple of weeks? Do we have any money left in the paving account this year? So those are sort of practical questions. If not, if there's no money to pave and no ability to pave, then we're looking at not having a decision made till February or March. So those are some of the components that I just want to call to your attention tonight. Thanks very much, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. Mike, are you able to answer that question?
I know for certain we would not be able to get it paved now. Only, we used up our, what we had going on for paving, which most of it was in Chapter 90 funding, and we do not have the available funding in the DPW budget to pave the whole road. The best I can offer is to get a crew up there to do some patching like we've done in the past before the winter comes. And we'll have to try and revisit this next year. But there's no way I can get it paved anytime soon.
Councilor Israel Rivera, I see your hands up. Did you forget to put it down, or you have it up again?
I forgot to put it down, I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith.
Thank you. And I don't know if Victoria wants to weigh in on this, but she had sent us a map earlier today that color-coded what those 900 feet are. So it's very much only a small portion of the entire road that the city is suggesting taking as a private way and paving. And I think based on this, and you can weigh in, Victoria, that it doesn't look like there is state land on that 900 feet on either side of the road.
Yeah, so I don't want to talk into your microphone, but since I'm doing 2 duties right now. Just to be clear, so each property that abuts the piece of that right-of-way, which goes like right up past your driveway or whatever, you would own to the center of the road. So while the Mass Department of Fisheries may own to the other side of the road, they would own to the center of the right-of-way, and you own to the center of the right-of-way for the extent that you have that frontage. So in order to do it with the private municipal funding, we would need to get everybody's permission that abuts that section of roadway to be paving that private way, because that's the default thing. When it gets abandoned, the road doesn't go into oblivion. Everybody owns by default to this end of the road. Whether it shows it in your deeds or not, it doesn't just like sit there. So it's not like the city owns the right of way and we haven't done anything with it. Like everybody default owns to the center of the road. So in that example, or even in the municipal funding source, like you still have sort of the right. It doesn't go way beyond. And again, for clarification, all of the conservation restrictions are on the other side of Southampton Road and nowhere near where we're talking about near the old Jarvis.
So it sounds to me like the state/conservation land is not at play. In the shorter section of the road, the city is suggesting to potentially take on as a public way. And I will say, like, I know, you know, $500,000 just sound like a lot, and it is. But we have so many roads that paving has just become more and more expensive, right? Like to do Bemis this coming year is going to be upwards of $700,000. To do Lincoln is like $430. So it's paving has become very expensive, which is also why using only Chapter 90 funding, we've been paving fewer and fewer roads every year. And that's why I know that we've had on council many conversations with, you know, the DPW director and with the mayor around putting in a line item in the budget in order to increase the amount of funding that can go towards a municipal contribution towards paving roads, because we have a lot of needs that we've been deferring for a long time, and just the cost of paving has gone up, and the Chapter 90 formula hasn't really made up that gap. It hasn't changed. And I know that our representative is listening, so that's certainly something that's really important to us, is if there's going to be a shift in the Chapter 90 funding that really gets at how much inflation has impacted our ability to pave roads, I think that would be really important for the State House to work on.
If I may,
Yes.
you're 100% correct. Always happy to talk about that and how, our formulas may stay stagnant and they need to change with the time. But I would also add that there is been also a second very substantial influx of Chapter 90 funding each year since the implementation of the fair share tax. Just don't forget about that.
Okay.
Councilor Patty Devine?
Yeah, I know that we had sent the information to Representative Duffy, and I'm thrilled that she's here. And also we got an email from Senator Vilas's aide, and I think he wanted to know if we sent it to him. So I haven't heard anything back. I don't know if you have, Councilor McGrath-Smith.
I think the only communication I received was looking at the maps. It seemed like it, since it didn't really abut the section that we're looking to build out, doesn't abut the state conservation land, that it very much becomes a city issue and we have to resolve it ourselves.
And one thing too, with this order, that Old Bassett Road be paved by the city of Holyoke. And as Mike said, it can't be done now, because of so many different things, but it certainly could be done in the springtime, I would hope. So I'm wondering if we should, again, if you don't mind, the neighbors that are here, do we table this until the springtime? I worry that if we pass it tonight, all we're passing is that we're telling the city to pave it, but we're not there to make sure they do that. So my suggestion, if the committee goes along with me, is to hold it again. I hate to do that to you, unless you got another suggestion.
My only other suggestion is that we could have a motion that, approves our approval of paving the road and asks the mayor to identify an appropriation in the next budget for its paving, as well as for the initial surveying and tax title work on potentially taking it as a public way, because that needs to be done and funding has to be appropriated for that before we can, because Victoria gave us the Holyoke Road acceptance procedure, which is great. And that was really good work that she did to put it on paper. Here are the simple steps. And that was really good work that she did. But we have to have the surveyor's plan and the site, the tax title work done before council could even vote to approve it as a public way. And so if we don't ask for that work to be done, then we'll never get there. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Councilor Israel Rivera, I see your hand up again.
Yes, I did. I think I just wanted to kind of agree with the point that Meg made around inflation, and that there's actually an article that was sent to me recently that came out in the Commonwealth Beacon highlighting UGA funds and how the growth in that compared to inflation is like a significant net loss for like local municipalities, and it's made it difficult for us to actually do certain projects within the guidelines that we're having to be in. But I also appreciate the fact that our state rep had definitely brought up around the Chapter 90 funding that we're actually getting increases into as well, that kind of around the fair share, which is new implementation of the tax that we're gonna see to be able to reap benefits later. But I think we're kind of at an impasse just regarding the fact that we don't have the funding at hand. We could put it in forward as requested, Counselor, but I think the concern for me is just that, like, then we're just putting things forward without actually having a deadline as to when we can get it done. And it just like continues. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Why not? We already do that. So I guess there's not nothing against it. Sure. My bad. Just thinking about it, we kind of do that already, so.
Just, if I may, through the chair to Councilor Rivera, my understanding is that the tax title and surveying work would come out of a line item transfer from the DPW budget. So that could get started now versus we just can't pave until there is a line item in the next budget for us to vote on. And
No,
also the weather.
See, but then how do we choose? See, but then the thing for me is, how do we choose that over other projects then that are happening throughout the city too as well? Like, or is that something that's already been on the pipeline? You get what I'm saying? Like, if that's already part of the plan, then I guess. But if it's something that's new, then
I mean, this has been
that
talked
would be
in.
overstepping something else that was already in a plan.
Sure. I mean, this has been in council meetings for over 2 years. And it's been a project that both the mayor and the DPW have been aware of for a long time. DPW has been going out there and trying to patch it and do the very best they can. But the road keeps deteriorating. And so we have roads, and you know, there's a number on the agenda tonight. So roads like Brookwood, like Old Bassett, West Cherry, Cedar Hill, these are some of the worst roads in the city, and there's been no clear path for a really long time in terms of paving them. And so, and we've kind of kicked the can down the road, I mean, with these roads for so long that at a certain point the bill comes due. And I think that's sort of what we're hitting. And that's why I asked earlier, as you know, about the earlier conversation that we had, around priorities and how we're balancing things. And the mayor's response was that he believes that we're going to be able to start moving some of these projects forward alongside some of our other concerns. And I think it's like, it has to be a bite-sized approach. We may only take on one road per year for a bunch of years until we've actually gotten through this backlog of these roads that are in really, they're getting to the point of being unpassable by emergency services. And we do have an obligation under state statute to make sure that our roads are passable by emergency services. So there is a reality there around these roads that have been kind of patched and overlaid over the last 30 to 40 years, but they've never really been brought up to where they should have been. And so they just keep deteriorating. So Old Brookwood, up until last year, we thought was a city road. and the bridge was being inspected by the state, and it was the top 3 worst roads in the city on the paving list that we got. We know it's in really bad shape. So, and I know that we'll get to that later in the agenda, but I do think that from my perspective, we should take it road by road. And if we do the surveying work and the tax title, we get a sense of how much the project will cost, then we're able to say, well, maybe one road is 1 year, one road is the next, one road, we take one at a time. I think we'll have to.
Okay, thank you. So, in my opinion to this is, I know things just keep getting pushed back and pushed back. Everything, for the last 4 years, I've seen everything tabled, and it seems like nothing's getting done. And with our residents here, they've gone through it. They've seen that this has jumped from committee to committee to committee, and at the end, they don't know, or hasn't even gotten an update because it just keeps jumping from committee to committee and nothing's ever done. I'm looking at it as they're homeowners. They purchased this home. They want to be in this home for the rest of their lives. They don't want to move from Holyoke, but we got to figure out something where things can get done. And I know we need the funding because their issue, also one of the issues was the unpassable emergency vehicle, the ambulance, right, when he went to go pick up. So with the will of the body and Megan, what you want, so if they can get something done and we can move this forward and see if it could become the public way and start it, at least they could get answers and not just sit there again and hear another 4 or 5 years go by and they're still at the same situation when nothing's been done. So with the will of the body, if we can at least, give them some kind of sense that we are listening to them and we are here and we do want to help. Because even like right now what Mike said, even if we say paving, that's not even going to happen until next year. So how bad is the road going to get this winter? It's just going to be worse. So if it keeps getting worse, the funding is going to just keep getting higher and then nothing's ever going to get done for them. So, I mean, they're trying, they're there, they're coming, they're speaking, they want to be heard, but it seems like we're just not hearing them and not helping them. So, like I said, with the will of the body, whatever we could put forward and get at least something done or get something started, and they know that they were heard. And
And we have a meeting, city council meeting December 2nd. So if we were to approve the paving now, okay, or when it can be done, at least you'd have that on the record with the full, I'm assuming full council would go with this, So if we were to do that, then we need to make sure that as soon as the weather is able to accommodate the paving, does that sound right, Mike?
Well, just because the weather will accommodate the paving, I don't know if the money will be there. I got to be honest with it. Like I said, before winter sets in, I can send a crew up there one of these days to do some patching up there. I'm pretty sure we get some patching done, they'll get them through the winter. I'm pretty sure the trash trucks get up there every Monday to pick up your trash, right? So we should be able to do enough work to get them through the winter. But the budget's in tough shape, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I can commit. Maybe it's 20,000 to pave it. It may not. It may be more. But we can at least have it and be able to take a look at it and see if there's opportunity.
Okay. So does that sound feasible to the homeowners that we approve the paving on December 2nd, which is the next city council meeting, and then the mayor is going to be putting out a budget, and we'll ask him to make sure he puts some money in there. It'll be the DPW budget for minimum, I would think, of $20,000 to start that paving.
Yeah, we might be able to get a quote, updated quote for it. I'm not sure where the $20,000 number came in. I haven't even been in this role for 2 months, so there's things like you've referenced, this has been in this committee for the last few years. I haven't been participating in all the process that's been going on behind the scenes for Old Bassett Road.
My notes say 18,000 for paving, so I just added 2 more, inflation. So if that is the will of not only the homeowners and the Ward 7 counselor, I would make a motion that we approve this order and send it to the city council with our strong suggestion that the mayor fund it as soon as the budget is available.
Second.
Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith.
I just want to name that would not allow us to start the process for a public way at this point. So in effect, it would be rejecting that as a possible path forward at this time. If we don't move it forward with a motion to ask the mayor to allocate funding for the initial surveying and tax title work, then that path dies here. It can't move forward unless council does that based on the road acceptance pathway that Victoria sent, which to the will of the body, right? I'm here as a guest and it's not my subcommittee. But it would substantially change how it moves forward if we're only asking for an allocation for paving.
Then I'll remove my motion. I misunderstood maybe. I'm thinking that to do it as a public way is going to be a lot more expensive. And I thought we would do the 18,000 and get it paved, but apparently we can't just do that.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, the body could, this public safety committee could decide we don't want to entertain the idea of it becoming taken in as a public way. We want that conversation to stop, and we want to only pave it as a private way.
So if we did that, that conversation would stop?
Yeah, because it can't move forward unless council approves an allocation for that initial surveying work and tax title work. Because that work can't happen without an allocation, and it can't happen without council approving the allocation. Or asking for the allocation to be brought to them and then approving it.
I'm thoroughly confused now with, so to do that, that's the most expensive way to get this done.
I know that I wish Victoria was here to say it, but I think the initial tax title work for Brookwood is likely to be around 20,000. So it's the initial allocation that's required just to do the work to develop the plan and to get the survey done. So it's not asking the council to approve all $500,000 it might take to then pave the road and all of that, right? Which would likely be paid for out of Chapter 90 when we get there. It would just be that initial funding that's required for the survey.
If I could, Councilor McGrath-Smith, if you were sitting over on this side with us, what would you do? Because I really don't know what to do a motion for. I know we can do the motion to have it paved, but what you're saying is that that's not going to take care of the problem. It's going to take a couple years.
So I think what I'm saying is that, it will be less expensive to the city even if we paved it every 20 years at full depth. My question is, are we going to do that? Are we committing to that for these private roads? Because it seems like we don't. A lot of these roads haven't been fully paved in 40 years. It's been a long time. So as a result, even if we do pave it once, I do fear that they'll just end up right back here, where then they're going to fight for 20 years for another road when they get to year 20, and the road is getting really bad again because they're not accepted as a public way, and the city has no responsibility currently to do paving, except when it chooses to, and allocates it out of municipal funding. I think if we're doing the 2-inch overlay in order to, as a Band-Aid, while we're going through the process of doing the survey and the process of starting the public way acceptance, that could be okay. But if we do a 2-inch overlay, the road's going to look as bad in 5 years. It won't last because it really needs to be more fully reconstructed. And that cost could be really high and would only come out of municipal funding. We can't use any Chapter 90 for it, which is why we tend to use these 1-2 inch overlays for these private roads, because we're trying to use municipal funding, and that's rough. I agree, it's complicated. I mean, from my perspective, I would like to see us, if we want to do the initial, 2-inch overlay kind of Band-Aid paving, along with allocating the funding through the DPW budget for the initial survey, I think that makes sense. Otherwise, we should push for a deeper allocation of funding that is asking for more of a reconstruction of the road at full depth, rather than just that 2-inch overlay. So it won't be 1850. It'll be a lot more than that.
Okay, so
And I see Victoria Houle has her hand up. I know she's transitioned to online.
okay, Victoria?
Okay. One, thank you all for bearing with our situation today. I would say that the acceptance as public way, when it serves only, a few houses, reconstructing it to 22 feet wide, if that's the current standard, possibly bringing in, water and all of that, that's a lot of money for a capital improvement that is going to serve a limited number of people. And in many communities, that would not be what they would consider as something that they're going to ideally accept as a public way. Again, you could accept it as a public way. There's also the fact of when they get added into Chapter 90, I think we've seen in the pavement management plan, under Chapter 90, it can do 1% of the streets in the city all year. So it's also hard to get into that top list of the Chapter 90 paving. In this particular situation, the amount of money that would go into that survey and the property appraisal title exams to potentially accept it will be significant. And so that is my first initial suggestion, is to sort of solicit all of the property owners that abut that 900 feet to see whether or not they also want to be paid for the property taking that would be involved in possibly accepting it, so that you know whether or not it needs to be done. If every single person that abuts this area is willing to donate the land, then you don't need that kind of stuff, if they're willing to donate the land. But if they're not willing to donate the land, then that adds to the expense. But the full roadway, building out the roadway to 22 feet wide as a full roadway with a cul-de-sac before it turns private again, will be expensive on top of that initial, survey and title exam work. And then, as Councilor Rivera had mentioned too, there's many other streets, those are sort of in that queue, and I think there is a piece of sort of looking at all of the private streets and how you want to handle each situation based on different variables is also something that you could look at. So I throw out the idea that maybe the public acceptance is possibly put on hold until maybe a little bit more information is brought forward. The idea that like a municipal funding source would need to be identified to pave it in the short term, because it was on, a list of sort of, you understand that it's a critical paving need, and to, even look at potentially an alternative that's maybe more than a 2-inch mill and overlay that will last longer than that time frame. But in some aspect, the idea that it's private and we get a municipal funding almost gets it to the head of the pack in this fashion when you have to allocate it specifically for the street. Whereas there's many other streets that I'm sure want to be paved, and if they knew they could put a petition forward to get their name on the list, then you're going to get a lot of petitions all of a sudden. So I just throw that kind of out there. Again, I will do whatever the council and the committee decides and find whatever cost it is for there, but that's just some other preliminary feedback.
Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe ask Attorney Bissonnette if that can be done. Motion to ask Councilor Bissonnette a question.
Second. Attorney Bissonnette. Now, would it be possible to have both things on the motion, so while the process starts, to make it a public way, we'll still be able to, have Mike, when the funding's available, to go and patch it, fix the road until the public way is.
What you want to do is request that the mayor provide funding to, step one, pave the road with a 2-inch overlay, and then begin the process of state acceptance of the road, including the title and design work needed to prepare for that acceptance.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Meg McGrath Smith, do you want what?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me.
Okay.
And the other option, again, if we can bring it to council, and I think we need to just explain the complexity of it, because the other option is to ask council to just approve paving it at full depth, which would be much more expensive than an overlay, and to accept that. So,
I kind of like what Mike had to say. So if that's okay, and certainly that the mayor provide the funding for the 2-inch overlay and begin the process of accepting the road as a public way. Okay, I make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote. Councilor Patty Devine?
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera? Yes. And thank you.
So, yeah.
You could-
Thank you. I got lost for a second. So with that vote, does it affect the process, the steps of accepting it as a city road? Because it's not going to city council? It's going
It
to the
will go to
mayor?
city council. This motion does go to city council on December 2nd.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. This was
Thank
a
you
long
for
time and a lot
sticking
of
with
work on
us.
everybody's part. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
sticking
you.
with us.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Same to you.
Okay. Take up item 3.
Motion to take up item 3. Oh, you don't have.
Second.
And she don't have to be here, right? Okay. Rep Duffy? Where is she? Oh. We would like you to would say thank you for coming down. So we needed you on that order. I mean, you're more than welcome to stay. We're not kicking you out. You're more than welcome to stay. But thank you very much for coming in.
Hey, thank you all so much.
Thank
And
you, Rep.
anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to learn all the good stuff I learned.
Okay, thank you. All right, so item number 3, filed by Councilor Meg McGrath Smith and Councilor Devine, order that the Cedar Hill Road be accepted as a public road. If it cannot be accepted, order that it be paved by the City of Holyoke. Councilor Meg McGrath Smith.
thank you. Cedar Hill Road is off of Route 5, near Smith's Ferry. And
where it is.
really, that neighborhood, if you ever drive it, is bizarre in that there's this no man's land of little roads up there that, started off as being owned by, one household, and then suddenly roads started to be built on it. And a lot of the houses that are on Route 5, which a lot of people don't realize, their driveways and where they actually park their cars are on those roads that are parallel to Route 5. And one's basically a trolley path. You can see where it goes up the mountain. Cedar Hill Road is in really bad shape. And it has a number of houses on it, which is similar to the West Cherry one that's coming next. It becomes really tricky to then ask them to somehow band together and get, 7 households to agree to go in on a construction project together. And the city goes out there every now and then and they patch it. And if you go up there, you'll see that, they're doing their best, but there's little road to patch. It's more patch than road in many ways. I can see the good work that you've been doing. So I'd love to hear from, if Victoria Houle is on, if she wants to talk about the history of the road, like who was the first house in this, like how did this kind of happen? And then hear from Mr. Gallagher about the work they've been trying to do on the road to keep it passable.
Thank you. Victoria, would you like to weigh in? Is she on? I don't see her. No, she's not on.
Okay.
I could weigh in little ways back. Like I've done some research on this road, and like there's a section that doesn't seem to be owned by anybody. But it's not an accepted public way. Is you start at Route 5, and you head on up, and then it branches off. And what it actually branches off, if you look on the property viewer, is that it's really driveway, and it's all these areas up there are actually owned and landlocked with properties. And you could, when you light up the different properties on the city's, the assessor's office's property viewer, you can see where all these different parcels are owned. The residents at the very top of the road, most of the road going up is actually an extension of their driveway. It's their, I believe it's the Gad boys that live at the very top of that road.
So, yep.
It's really their driveway. The path Councilor Smith spoke of that runs behind those houses, that is actually owned by that land, and a lot of other land up there is actually owned by a gentleman that's listed as a resident of somewhere in Ohio. And it's like most of it up there is not actually road. There's it's not even like scenario on Old Bassett Road is the old alleyway scenario where the butters owned half of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of Cedar Hill Road, the stretches of road actually go right through parcels of land up there. And so Cedar Hill Road would be far more complicated than Old Bassett Road, in my opinion.
Yes.
The city does the same thing. We provide some snow plowing and minor repairs, and we go up there and collect their trash, because the alternative for all these private ways or unaccepted streets, however you want to call them, is that then residents would have to be, in case of Cedar Hill, they'd have to be bringing their trash down to Route 5, and and then we do extend the courtesy. It's been something that's been happening. Not sure how it started. I've been at the DPW for 26 years, and we've always collected the trash up there. We've always plowed the road, and we've always done some patching up there. But once I got into the details of the ownership of the properties up there, it's very complicated.
Okay.
Maybe what we can do for this one and West Cherry is what we did for Old Bassett, that the mayor provide the funding for, they've already got it listed as a public way, so I don't think we have to do that. But maybe do the same motion with the exception of begin the process of accepting the road as a public way. According to this, I'm sorry. So it does need to be accepted, so maybe we need to do the same order.
If I may, I think that both West Cherry and Cedar Hill Road are really tricky roads to accept. And I think we may want to go the route of just asking the council to approve an allocation for full depth paving. It would be a lot of legal work because of what Mr. Gallagher named, to be able to go through the surveying and tax title work to get 7 households where the road goes through a lot of the people's parcels. And part of it's a driveway
for one owner that other folks then kind of have, access to, but informally. And the same, I think, there's a different reason for West Cherry. But I think at this point for Cedar Hill, I think that we probably should just move forward with asking council for an allocation for full depth paving.
Okay, so full depth, are you saying?
In other words, a 2-inch overlay won't touch the issue that's on Cedar Hill Road. Do you think I'm accurate in saying that, Mr. Gallagher?
It would help for a while, but with any road going down until you've reached the gravel and done some grading and compacting of the subgrade of the road before you put any asphalt back over it, is always going to be a more thorough job. It's going to be a lot more costly, but it's going to be more thorough.
Councilor Israel Rivera?
Yeah, with all these roads, like, have we done some form of like a traffic study or like a study where we put them all into a category and identify what would be the best approach to attack them one by one without it impacting the budget all in one shot? Just because my understanding and how we do roads usually is through Chapter 90 funding, and if we don't actually have funding, or if it doesn't qualify through Chapter 90 funding, then we would literally just be reallocating funding from somewhere else to then put it in to these particular roads. So like in doing that, I would like to see how much these roads are traveled and like how much more of an impact it would be if we're gonna do it like all in one shot, like we're kind of doing now. Because it sounds like there's a bunch of roads right now we're about to accept. And then we probably have to allocate a lot of funding that we probably do not have at the moment to be able to do all this work. So for me, it's like, it's all work that needs to get done if we accept the roads, right? But like, what would be the best approach? What would be the strategic approach? How can we finance it moving forward in a way that it doesn't impact the budget, the day-to-day? You know what I'm saying? It's not to say that this work doesn't need to get done or it's not important. It's just that priorities throughout the whole city kind of get weighed out. And for me, I would like to see like a whole study around all these roads and a plan of approach as to how we're going to allocate funding moving forward to get some of this stuff done. If that makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a complete sense to me. I do think it, ends up, I think it should be a separate order, and I'd be happy to co-file it with you. I know that originally when we started to have these conversations more broadly, it just freaked people out. And we ground to a halt and then did nothing for 2 years on any of it because the idea of taking it comprehensively was so overwhelming. Because we have so many. What I did in terms of picking these 3 to move forward on was the understanding that they were based on the last work that was done, which was from Chris Baker. He had put forward a list of all of the private ways in the city and then had named the worst ones. And so the 3 that I picked were all in that top 8 of the worst roads out of all the private ways. There was another companion order that got shot down by council. It got shot down in finance and then was given leave to withdraw. That actually asked us to fund all top 8 roads originally. But because the budget as it was named, you only had 2 options. One was for the 2-inch pavement overlay with the existing pavement width and you don't accept the road. And the other column was you accept the road and widen it to the required 24 feet. People looked at that and said, we can't afford to do all of the roadway construction at 24 width, plus all the legal fees, plus all of the survey work that needs to happen for that. And then they looked at the 2-inch pavement and said, well, let's just go with that. Until people started to name, it won't last long. So then you're throwing, $100,000 at really short-term paving. I think it was Councilor Sullivan was like, some of these roads won't make 2 years before they're going to feel almost as bad as they are now. The 2-inch overlay will just break down. And I've heard that it's more like 3 to 4 years, but I understand he's got his professional expertise that he's talking from too. And so at that point, it just ground to a halt. No one felt like either plan was feasible or was responsible, and so then we did nothing. But now the roads that were the top 8 worst private ways 2 years ago are even worse, right? Even though DPW is doing yeoman's work, really trying to patch these roads and keep them passable for people going down them and for emergency vehicles. I didn't pick, for example, certain roads where it seemed more like an alleyway. And there was an alternative way that someone could get to their property without using that road. That I don't think from my own perspective we should be focusing on. I focused on roads that had households that were no longer really able to get down their road passably, and it was the only option they had for how they could get to their road or get to their house. The other ones on the top 8 are Alto Street, which is 269 feet. It's very short. And Oscar Street, which is 219 feet, and Owens Place, which is 175. And then there's Curran Lane, although that I had questions around. It seemed like it was more of a family road. All the houses are owned by the same family on that road, so that felt like a different situation to me. And then there was Dingle Road, where the folks that were kind of concerned about that road also had access to their houses through another road. So it didn't feel like...
Is that off of, in the Highlands?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's why I picked the 3 that I did. They were all in the top 8. West Cherry is the private way that has the most houses on it. And West Cherry is the most traveled, even without a traffic study, I could tell you, of the private ways, because it's the longest road. It's 3,000 feet long. And there are other side streets that go off Cherry Street. So it's not just the 13 houses on it, it's all the people going to the gun club, and it's all the people who are then going to the side streets that are off West Cherry. So West Cherry would be the most expensive road for us to pave out of these roads, but also it's the longest and it's the most traveled with the most households and cars on it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Israel Rivera?
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you for the backstory on that. And again, worthy streets and all that other stuff to get done and paved. There's a top 10 private road list that are the worst private roads. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a top 10 public that are the worst public roads too, right? So like, to me, it's like before. I would need to see like a study as like traffic, how much people going up and down, like to see where on the list priority wise a lot of these would be. So it's like if I'm voting one in and we're voting 2 in here and there, but there's a list of them that are coming through, and it's not to say that they don't need to get done and that we don't consider the tenant, I mean the residents that live there, the taxpayer or anything like that. It's just that to take on so much in one shot, when there's actually no real wiggle room in the budget, and the little bit of wiggle room that there is in the budget would then be allocated, in a sense, by council if we vote on it, right? Like ideally, that doesn't mean that the mayor has to follow suit, but ideally it would be that the money that the free cash that we have, if we have some, right, it would be a chunk of it would go towards a lot of these roads. And for me, it's not to say that I wouldn't want this to happen, but is that the best way to spend the free cash that we have? Is it the most effective? I wouldn't know. There are different ways to go about it, And for me, I would like to see something more, as stated before, like comprehensive around it. And it sucks that it got voted down last time. It would make sense to see if we can do something like that, and I'd be down with filing an order around that. And it's not to say that I wouldn't support this road or any of the other roads, but it's just that, like, I really wish that if we would take that approach, because there are a lot of other roads throughout the city where the neighbors probably aren't as vocal or don't have don't know how, or have the wherewithal to be able to reach out to their either at large or their ward councilors to be able to bring up the issues or even know that they can have that dealt with in a particular way. So for me, it's like the more holistic approach would be let's take a deeper dive and see where throughout the whole city we have these issues, so that we can start figuring out a plan to best approach it. You know what I'm saying? Does some qualify for Chapter 90? Do some don't? Or can we make them qualify by accepting them like we're trying to do, it sounds like? Like doing some of that type of work more comprehensively, because right now, I feel like there's a lot coming down. I mean, it's not to say, again, not that I won't yes or no vote for them, because there's value in all of it, but it's just that I don't want to sell somebody a dream, right? Like, I don't want to vote on something, say that we're doing it, and then 3-4 years down the road, it's still not done because there's no money for it. Like, and that's what I could see happening. But just kind of wanted to share that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera.
Do we want, this just said to pave that. First, we got to accept it as a public way. We're still on Cedar Hill?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, although in this case, I think, given the complexity of the road, the only thing that I think makes sense to do initially is just to ask for it to be paved at full depth.
So I'd make a motion that be paved at full depth.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion to take up.
And then, are we on item 4?
We're at number 4, yes.
Item 4, I motion to take that up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 4 is copy petition to accept Brickwood Road as a public way. So, motion to accept.
I'm sorry?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept it as a public way? Okay.
And I just want to thank Mr. Gallagher for the work that they did to try to patch it before winter hit, because it was in really rough shape. It was top 3 worst road in the city. It's a very short road. It's a road with a lot of history because it was a county road that was discontinued. It was existed before Route 5, and it was the road that went all the way through down to Northampton. And the first public schoolhouse on the city, its foundation is right next to the road. Their road gets used all of the time for search and rescue teams because they have one of the best access points to the river when search and rescue has to go down there. And over the last 3 years, they've been used for extensive searches of the river twice as the grounding point for that. The city and the state put in effectively like a stormwater management access point through their property. When they put in Route 5, there were some issues with the brook that needed to be diverted, so they diverted it under Route 5 through their property with a dam and a bridge down through their property down to the river. That was maintained as a state bridge and was inspected annually by the state until last year when they sent a letter saying that they didn't have any record that the city had ever done what we thought we had done, which was accept the road as a private way. And as a result, they took the bridge off of the state inspection list. They said, well, I don't know, it's on you now, figure it out. And the homeowners were pretty horrified because that had never been, and their understanding when they purchased this property, and it's still being used in many ways, right, as an important part of like diverting that stream under Route 5, and also used for search and rescue. So I know that the mayor's voiced his support for accepting this as a public road and doing what we need to do. Right now, the homeowner will be responsible for managing this stormwater issue for us, and paying to fix the bridge if it ever needs to be fixed, or pay to get it inspected. None of that seems to make any sense. And so as a result, if we're accepted as a public way from the bridge down, there's already like a chunk of it from Route 5 down that's already public way, and it would be accepting that chunk in the middle down through the bridge. Then we can use the bridge inspection grant through the state to be able to keep that bridge inspected and in good shape. So this has the support of the mayor, the engineer, and the city solicitor all met to go over it a few weeks ago. And then our step is to accept it as a public way and start the process.
And that is Brookwood.
Then this is Brookwood Road.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
You made the motion.
I make a motion to accept Brookwood Road as a public way.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote. Councilor Patty Devine?
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera? Yes. Thank you, that passes.
I'll take a motion that we receive item 6, which is
5.
5?
Yeah, we're on 5 now.
West Cherry, sorry.
Okay.
Make a motion that West Cherry be paved by the city of Holyoke, and that was last tabled October 28, 2025.
Okay.
Thank
Can I
you.
get a second?
And
Second, can I second my own motion?
Well, I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this motion, item 5, was filed by Councilor Meg McGrath Smith, order that the West Cherry be paved by the city of Holyoke.
And I would love to have Mr. Gallagher speak to West Cherry. My understanding, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that originally this was a county road, but it also went down to the gun club. And that then over time, parcels were sold off to make these side streets and to add parcels. So now there's 13 distinct households on that road. And it's a tricky road when you go down it. It would be tricky in many ways to accept, because widening it is tricky. Because so much of the left-hand side of the road goes down pretty significantly right past the road. So it would be tricky to accept it as a public way. Definitely a really bad road. And I would encourage anybody, when I say it's a bad road, like go drive some of these roads and you'll see what I mean by how bad they are. The first time I went down West Cherry Street, I was like, what am I on?
That's
What
I did
is
with
this
Old Bassett.
road? Like, you can't go more than 5 miles down that sections of that road, and you're like playing slalom around parts that you think your tire's gonna go in and you'll never get out of it. It's really bad. And so they've done a lot of work patching it whenever they can, but the road is really deteriorated. The last time it was paved was a number of years ago, and it was a 1 or 2 inch overlay, and then it just deteriorated back to its current condition. But if Mr. Gallagher would be allowed to speak.
Sure.
Well, I mean, West Cherry, the problems, I think, go far deeper than repaving it. There would need to be considerable subgrade work and the excavation for drainage that would have to be complete out on that road. It's another road that never sees the sunlight, and it's got a lot of groundwater out there. Just for a second, there's really not any side streets off of West Cherry. Some people have very long driveways off of there. It still is open to the gun club. I think it's the State Department of Conservation or maybe Fisheries and Wildlife that put a gate up right after you go past the driveway to the gun club. There's a gate that's been installed there. At one time, that road used to come all the way out on the Cherry Street where the George Frost Drive is,
Yep.
where the college.
HCC.
it got renamed as West Cherry Street back when the city switched over to the E911 system. And a significant section of that road was discontinued many years ago, and it falls under the same problem that it's not an accepted street, so it's not eligible for Chapter 90 funding. And today the street's not in as tough a shape. Our crews recently finished patching out there. I mean, very recently. If you had any calls on it or not, but it is it's a significant amount of work. I've worked on that road many times myself. I had that snowplow run out in that area for a long time, and you got to really know what you're doing on that road sometimes, and it can catch somebody that's not familiar with it off guard. But it might be the toughest situation to look at, as Councilor Smith said, out of all the roads we have. I'm not sure what direction we're going to be able to go in with it without identifying a significant funding source or a manner to have meaningful work done to that road, because there really needs to be a lot of drainage work has to be done on that road, in my opinion, to stop the problems from reoccurring. Because that road could get paved, and the same problems are gonna come up again, and out in that road, it might not even hold up a year if it's on sections of it. Your area by closer to Mountain Road, if that got repaved, that would stand a chance for a while, as long as some work with the drainage is done. But the further down that road you go, the less of a chance you're gonna have of just having a simple paving job hold up for long. It would make people happier and people's lives easier for possibly a couple of years, but there would be a lot of work that would need to be done for a permanent solution. And I'm not sure if that's in the scope of the city's right of ways. I believe we would be dealing with conservation lands out there. There's a brook that runs through there somewhere, I believe. There's a pond there. It used to be the former YMCA day camp. I don't know if any of you remember back in the day before it was even West Cherry Street. I remember back before there were houses there. There was a nice field out there that people back in the 80s might have used to go and visit during the nice weather at different hours of the day and night. But it'll be a lot of work to take on doing that street. I wish I had a simple answer for it.
All righty, thank you, Mike. So the motion
to pave West Cherry Street.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote. Councilor Patty Devine.
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera, yes. That passed.
I'd like a motion to take up item number 6, and I think we just received that. And the same with item number 7.
So motion to take up item 6 and 7 together.
Yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, documents related to the Old Bassett Road discontinuance. And item 7 is Holyoke Road acceptance procedure.
And we have that.
We have it.
If I may, we have that in our packets. So I'm assuming that if we have it in our packets, the whole city council is going to have it in their packets, and we would just advise them to read it. So that's my take on 6 and 7.
Okay, so a motion to have the city council read the,
Item number 6, we'll take a separate vote on that.
okay,
And then item number 7, we'll take a separate vote on that.
okay. Can I hear a second? No, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, roll call vote, for item number 6. Councilor Patty Devine,
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera, yes.
Jeffrey's got his hand up.
Oh, Jeffrey?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. So, on your recommendation for item 5, was that recommendation including a request for the mayor to appropriate funding the same as the other ones were?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that was part of it, because I know that has to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I just was asking, so it was on record for that. For items 6 and 7, so the full council already did receive those when they were referred to the subcommittee. So I might, if I can be so bold, I might recommend receiving for the purpose of archiving in the committee. That way the committee maintains ownership of these, because if they're referred out as received, then they go back to the clerk and the committee doesn't have them anymore.
So,
But I think there's valuable history to having the committee keep these as received.
okay. So for the purpose of archiving them. Jeff, is that right?
'Cause like I said, the council did already receive them at the last
Okay.
council meeting.
Okay. So what's the motion?
Motion to receive
To receive?
and archive.
Okay.
Are you do the motion?
Motion to receive item 6 and item 7 for the purpose of archiving.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote. Counselor Patty Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Israel Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera. Yes. And Izzy, before you go, Carmen was here, and Mike, before you leave too. Carmen wanted to, item 12, I'm sorry. And she said the order's been complied with on item 12.
Make a motion to
Yes.
item 12 be complied with.
Motion to take up item 12 off the table.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and then motion, that item 12 be recognized as complied with, as they have already elaborated on that
Second.
topic, I guess.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Roll call vote. Counselor Patty Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Israel Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera, yes.
And motion for the meeting to be adjourned, but
No.
I'm not there, so.
No, not yet. Hold on.
Oh, okay, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
she has item 13
She
and then
should-
one more after
take them
this
up as a
one.
package if they're all complied with.
She wanted me to read.
You still read them,
Okay.
but you just take them as a package and say that they're complied with.
I don't know. This one's tricky. Okay, so motion to take up item 13 off the table.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, Councilor Carmen Ocasio, she stated that item 13 states order that the city install a few signs, no trucks, slow down children, and no parking anytime on the block across from 320. She said she spoke to Mike Gallagher, which was here, in Chambers, and Mike stated that they're going to change, they're going to take out slow down children and put autistic child. Is that correct, Mike?
What I suggested to her, slow children signs are not used anymore. That recommendation, I believe you might have already gotten that communication. But I do know there's several areas where the council's passed orders recently for autistic person in area or autistic child in area. That because she mentioned that you have an autistic child, that might be an option to put that there. And the parking situation, we'll have to look at if currently there's any parking going on that's in violation of current ordinance. And I thought she was going to have this referred to engineering before, but it may not have been for any suggestions for any modifications to the parking ordinances. Because if there's if there's no ordinance prohibiting parking in a certain location, we can't just slap up a sign that says no parking. But we're gonna have to.
Thank you,
We're
Meg.
gonna have to, the DPW is gonna have to take a look at this, and we would, I would recommend in order for the, to explore an order for autistic child in area for one of those signs, and for the engineering to take a look at the parking situation and see if there's any modification that can be made to that.
Okay, so you want a motion to table it?
I would do a motion to table it.
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilor Israel Rivera.
Yeah, I also second that with the tabling thing. But with the autistic child piece, there actually has to be someone with an autistic child that's filing for that and requesting that. It can't just be put up just to put it up to slow down traffic. Like there has to be someone in the neighborhood that is requesting that put up.
All right.
So
Good
that
point,
way,
sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so the motion was and seconded to table item,
12, was it?
no, item 13.
13.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote, Councilor Patty Devine,
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera,
yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera, yes. All right, you're on
Next.
the last one, yes, 51.
Which one? I can't see.
51.
Okay, item number 51, I make a motion that we take that up for discussion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So item 51 is also filed by Carmen, Councilor Carmen Ocasio. Her recommendation is to table it, and she just wanted me to read this. She put Mr. Miguel Hernandez, who owns 544 Hampden Street. That is a very dangerous road. He has trouble getting out of his driveway. Mr. Hernandez would love to purchase the land. He went to the planning board and submitted his proposal to expand his yard, for his son, and the remaining space. He would love to make 3 parking spaces for the other residents who live there, could have somewhere to park. So her recommendation was that we table it and that somebody files this order.
Right, and I think too, the person you just mentioned that went to the planning department, he's probably gonna come back to us when it's all done, all said and done.
Okay.
Motion to table, item 51.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Roll call vote.
Madam Chair, real quick,
Yes.
my 51 is not the same as that. My 51, and I apologize, it reads as order that the city and owner of 5 Owen Place come in and discuss who is responsible for the damage on the back fence of 544 Hampden Street.
Yeah, that's what it reads, but she put item number 51, and then she wanted me to, I don't know if this goes
So
along
we
with that
can't,
damage?
we can't necessarily vote on something that's not, like, we gotta vote on this order, what it reads. And what it reads is the damage thing.
Yeah. So
You get what I'm saying?
can we just table it, or,
We can we can leave it, it is tabled already.
okay,
We can just leave it as that is and then just have her come in and explain, or or we can talk to her and see what she's talking about, file another order.
New oil order.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what she wanted me, she said to table it, but to make sure to read this into the record.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, no, I would say that it's already tabled, so there's nothing to table.
Okay, so we just leave it there?
Yeah, just leave it there, and that if someone wants to inquire about that purchase of an extra property or whatnot, that's a different order to be filed, I
Okay,
think.
so I'll reach out to her
Thank
and
you,
let her
Mike.
know.
You
Thank you,
okay?
Mike, for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your work. Good night.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Motion to,
Motion to adjourn.
second?
All in favor? Oh, my bad. No. Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call vote for this?
Just take it.
Oh, okay, roll. Councilor Patty
I do.
Devine?
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera, yes. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.